Hello and good evening. My name is Charlotte Potter Kasich, and I am the director here at the Barre Art Museum. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. So first, I just want to orient you all to the Barre Art Museum. We opened our doors in the fall of 2018. We house the personal collection of Dick and Carolyn Barre. We have biennial rotating exhibitions and lots of new acquisitions, so come back frequently. Our museum serves as one of the many cultural icons in Norfolk, Virginia, and we sit on the gateway to Old Dominion University. So first, I want to tell you a little bit about our collection. We have a remarkable painting collection with pieces that are historical marine paintings. We also have an incredible American modernist collection. We have phenomenal glass, not just studio glass, but also contemporary glass. This is a great example of one of our contemporary pieces by Monier from a Farmanian. And then also maybe the wild card for some people is that we have a phenomenal historical doll and automata collection, which has inspired a lot of our changing exhibitions. So here's just a few of the changing exhibitions that are on view right now. Tonight, we're going to be talking a lot about Rhonda Holybear, artist and story keeper. But a few other ones are still also on view. This will be for Thousands of Years by local artist Heather Beardsley that highlights a lot of Eastern Europe and the changing landscape and architecture there, as well as Motion Emotion, exploring affect from automata to robots. All of these are on view until December 31st, so come quickly if you want to still catch them. We have a number of free public programs, everything from weekly tours every Saturday at 1 p.m. or by appointment, as well as our Unite series, which is our after hours programming where we unite the community as well as our student body with a free evening of entertainment and fun all around different themes. The next one is Friday, November 11th. This evening, we're going to talk about a lecture series here with Rhonda Holybear. I want to mention there will be a Q&A at the end of this, so hold tight and put those questions into the Q&A and we'll get to it right at the end. So let me fiddle for 2 more seconds. I got to change one thing here. Almost there. Okay. So now I want to introduce the exhibit that we're going to be really highlighting this evening. It's Rhonda's show in our new topical gallery that's located sort of Russian doll style, nestled within our doll gallery. This exhibit highlights the work of Rhonda Holybear, or Cheyenne River Lakota tribe, born in 1959. She's renowned for her exquisite figurative art, and her work originates from the indigenous practice of doll making. Over the course of her career, she's transformed her dolls into powerful, intricate works of sculpture through the introduction of carved wooden faces, elongated forms, and highly decorated clothing. These pieces convey more than just technical virtuosity. They're also story keepers, maybe first and foremost. Holybear observes the significance of story keeping in her practice, stating stories have always played an integral role in the preservation of our native culture. She's very interested in her immediate family's history and the greater histories of the Lakota people, as well as all different Plains people. This intimate survey exhibition explores her creative practice through a selection of her works for the past 35 years. I want to thank everybody who was on our exhibition advisory board. It does take a village to take something like this. Keith Anderson, Rhonda Holybear, Stephen Graff, and Drew Lapenza were all instrumental in shaping this, as well as the guest curator, Sarah Woodbury. I also want to thank a number of institutions who loaned us works for this show. It was really hard, actually, to get all of Rhonda's work together because she has been so collected. So Alan Gentman, the Brinton Museum, and Susan and David Good all loaned different pieces for this exhibit. The piece we're probably going to focus on the most here is one of her most recent pieces, and I'm going to show you a short video on this, the Seize the Horses Woman. So this video is playing in the gallery as well, but we made it special for you guys here tonight. Enjoy.
I am Rhonda Holybear, Lakota artist. My Lakota name is Makahwin Nomi, making with exceptional skills woman. And this is my master artwork, Lakota honor sees the horse's woman, Shuwakaan Dawi. She is based on many sources of Lakota history and culture, including my own family's history. These many threads of information have all been woven together to create a beautiful story of Lakota honor. Because we as Lakota people had no written language, our stories were recorded through the use of abstract symbolism and artistic pictorial drawings of important events. Most stories and songs were memorized, recited, and passed down through the generations. Making art is my way of telling these stories. The horse theme is prevalent and depicted in several layers throughout my artwork. Lakota and Plains tribal people share a deep, heartfelt, spiritual connection with the horse nation, for it was the coming of the horse that elevated our men to great prominence as great warriors and leaders. The wapaha, or in English, the war bonnet, is an eagle feather headdress that symbolizes an honorable record of valiant actions done in battle with the enemy. Each eagle feather was earned by fearless bravery in battle with the adversary of another tribe. When a warrior earned enough eagle feathers through many brave deeds, a full crown of eagle feathers was assembled into a magnificent headdress constructed by the elder leaders of time-honored warrior societies, bestowing him the highest honors. Imagery of such courageous encounters with enemy tribes are depicted with sea beads and paint throughout this art piece. Sees the horse's woman, the wife of a slain warrior killed on the battlefield, holds in her right hand her husband's stone war club and his quilled White Horse Society penny bag. In her left hand, she holds his porcupine quill decorated Catlinite pipe. Red quillwork streamers, feathers, and dyed horsehair represents blood flowing or bleeding, the red blood of both life and death. The rainbow-colored edging on the top portion of the dress represents the council that is Wakatona, the great force of nature's power. The white-colored background of the beaded dress represents the sacred buffalo woman, the woman who brought our Lakota people the sacred calf pipe and 7 sacred rituals. She came to us as a woman who transformed into a buffalo calf that changed colors 4 times. The last color was totally white. The horses stand on hind legs, singing and paying homage for safe passage for their warrior relative, now making his way to the spirit world represented by the central blue morning star. The 3-dimensional human form of Seize the Horse's woman is carved from wood. Her natural tanned deerskin dress is decorated with Venetian and Czechoslovakian antique micro-seed beads, French medicine. Paha stitch and apenupa stitch, meaning hill and 2-needle stitch, are the 2 main beading techniques used. The more traditional and revered porcupine quill work and micro scale are among her many adornments.
So there's the video that plays depicting that one piece, but there's much more than just that in our show. Here you can see another piece called Women with Lakota Treaty Dress, and it's on loan from the Foundation of the Preservation of America and Art and Culture. The beadwork itself is a testament to the reservation life that resulted from these treaties, and you can see the treaties and you can see the flags right here. So in some ways it's a mourning piece, and in some ways it's a celebration. Confined to the very small tracts of land with little to do, the crafters elaborated on the beaded costumes. This one, going back in time, Crow Woman on Horseback, is on loan from the Brinton Museum, and it's an early example of Rhonda Holybear's work. When she first began making dolls, she created bodies using the same soft leathers that traditional plains dolls use, such as pliable, soft materials that kind of reflected the mobility and underpinning of the plains people, like the crow. Lightness and portability were crucial qualities to this material culture, but you'll notice some of her more current works, she utilizes other materials such as ceramics and wood. Greyhawk is on loan from Alan Gendman, and Greyhawk was a Lakota warrior photographed by Frank Fisk, who was a white photographer. Holybear had a postcard of this photograph, and it really struck her. So she was moved to reinterpret Fisk's photograph through the Indigenous lens. Then we have Spirit Messenger, who has a very long story, which I won't go into now, but it's a really incredible piece about the circle dance. And then just a quick note that if you do come to visit the exhibition in person, you'll have an opportunity to participate in our museum guides. So there's lots of wonderful handout material that gets into the glossary, how to make your own beads, appropriation versus appreciation, and some important things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I give you Rhonda Holybear. Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us all the way from your home and your private studio. We're really honored to have you here. And we asked her tonight if she could really elaborate a bit more on the specific glass bead process. We were interested in this because, well, for many reasons, but on a personal level, I initially was a glass blower and we have such an incredible glass collection. It also is the International Year of Glass. And it sounds like these little beads have quite the history, and we look forward to hearing about it from you.
Yeah. Oh, let's see, Wi-Fi, hit the Wi-Fi.
I can't see.
Yeah, that's top one. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, let me get out of the way of the camera. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for that incredible introduction. I'm so humbled, my goodness. And thank everyone. I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And I have a few things prepared for you. This is going to be very low key, very casual. Just some thoughts, about the history of seed beads. I want to bring up some interesting little things, to kind of perhaps maybe get you interested in glass beads, and and come join the or come and see the Berry Museum and their glass collection. And since my work has a lot of seed bead work on it, it fits very, very well with the Berry Museum. So I have a lot to get to, so I'm going to try to get to all of this. And so I just want to talk about where the beads came from, how they got to Turtle Island, and bring up a few of the historical things that are significant in the glass making history and its process. And I'll show you a few of those examples. I have a small collection here of some of the micro beads and some of the more historical items. And then I have, or historic beads. And then I have some items here that are mostly beaded by my people, the Lakota. I have one by the Nez Perce people here, a couple of items actually from the Nez Perce. And then I have some tools that I'd like to show you. So, all right, so to begin with, let me go through my notes as I'm speaking here, because my goodness, there's so much to get to. Beads first came to us on Turtle Island by Columbus. Columbus brought the seed beads, and when he landed in the Bahamas in 1492. Seed beads were produced and introduced to the Italians, or the Venetians at the time. That was like back in like 1200, and they dominated the bead making industry for about 600 years. And there were some events that that would take place that would end this the manufacture of the great seed bead making tradition. So anyway, So when they landed here, they traded with the native peoples. They brought larger beads at first. They were called like padre beads is what they were called. And then that means father beads, because it was the Catholic priests who brought them along with the explorers. And then they had a smaller bead a little bit later, which was called a pony bead. And they were brought on the backs of ponies, and they were a little bit smaller. And then later on, they would bring the very, very colorful, very tiny seed beads, which were about the size of a seed. And the process of making them is quite complicated. I don't know a whole lot about that part because that's not the part that I'm like really that deep into. I'm into using, making them into my art. But from what I understand, they had developed this process over many, like I said, hundreds of years it took them to learn this process. And it usually, they made molten glass from different minerals that they found in nature. And then they would add chemicals to them to make the colors. And what they would do is they would take a blob of glass, a molten glass that would be heated at very, very high temperatures. And then they would make rods of them, it would be hollow. And in the image that Charlotte is showing here, you can see that it would be two men who would take that blob of glass, and it would be hollow in the center. And then as they stretched it, it became longer and longer and longer until it became really, it could be super, super tiny. And then someone would come along and they would break that rod of glass into smaller rods, or canes is what they would call them. And they were about a meter long. And then they would cool off and they would gather them all up. And then the next part of the process would be like a guillotine process where they would cut the beads into smaller seed bead size rods, like if you will. And then what they would do, I believe, is that they would take those little tiny, the edges were real sharp. Like if you ever broke a bottle or something, you would see how sharp an edge could get. So in order to round that out and soften it out, they would put them in a large drum tumbler. And then they would add lime and water and a few other things. They would make a slurry out of it, and they would add that to the drum. And then the drum would be heated from the outside, is what I understand. And they would turn those, and it might take several days. It might take a couple of days. It might take 2 weeks, to tumble those beads until they were softened. And that tumbling would also kind of elongate the center hole inside of the bead, and that's what gave you that classic Venetian donut shape, as opposed to the Czechoslovakians who later joined in this industry. They made theirs, I think, a little differently. I'm not sure exactly what their process was, but and there are differences between what the Venetians made, how they made the beads, because of different formula techniques. And the Venetians, their molten glass was very fluid. And so that's why you get the tiniest beads, where the Czechoslovakian technique was a viscous formula, much thicker, and so they could actually kind of mold beads, and you don't get the very super teeny tiny microseed beads. And microseed beads, the true microseed beads, are sizes about anywhere from 18 down to a 24, but I would say the real ones are really 20 to 24 are the sizes that are the true microseed beads. The finishes on the beads were different, also, where the Venetians kind of have what they call a kind of a greasy finish. It almost looks somewhat translucent. There are some transparent ones, but they kind of have like a Vaseline-like look to them. The Czechoslovakian beads kind of have a chalky look to them. And I can kind of show you some of the differences here with that, because I have a moccasin here that is, okay, can we switch camera to display camera? Okay, okay, so here we go. So here we have this side, and this purple was a much later color. This was introduced like around 1900, 1920, something like that. And you can see the roundness in the beads, and these are the earlier Venetian beads, and you can really kind of see the quality, the difference in them. And hopefully I've got that up close enough so that you can kind of see, like the Czechoslovakian beads over here are rounder, much more uniform shape, where the Venetian beads have more character because every single bead is kind of individual, and that really sets it apart. From these two techniques are totally different from one another. The Venetians, there was such a demand for the beads by the native peoples that they had to take the rods and they sent them to Czechoslovakia to be processed. So they would go there and they would do all the tumbling and the sorting, out of and packaging of the colors, and they would send it back to Venice. And in that process, somehow they learned how to make them, as well. So later on, they would start making them. Although with the Venetians, it was top secret, and the penalty for sharing the secrets of the bead making process was death, which is pretty harsh. But they had to protect it because this was a big moneymaker for them. They traded with native peoples all through the world, and they got many goods by trading these beads. And then another little interesting thing that would come up is the beads at first were shipped kind of loose. These small beads, they're shipped in little boxes and little packages. And if you drop them, they scattered everywhere. They just went everywhere. And so the packagers got an idea, and they decided that they had all these wonderful Venetian housewives who were waiting for their husbands to come home from sea, and they were busy raising their children, and they had a lot of time that they could perhaps string all of these beads. And so what they did was they would get a big tray, and in that tray there would be loose seed beads, and then the ladies would have long needles, and attached to that would be thread, and then they would dip the needles into the box of beads, filling up the needle, and then they would slide everything down until they formed what is like a hank of beads. And so you would get like little loops like this. And these strings, these were all flax strings. And so the flax thread itself, that's quite a process itself, because that was made out of a grass. But it was very strong. And so this is how they would string all of the beads. And they would use a standard measurement, which would be the length of the tray. And then they would fold that in half. And then they would twist them. And they would twist several of the hanks, all together. And then you would get a bigger hank, like a big, let me see if I can see, when you got gathered up enough of the hanks, they would call this a master hank. And they would twist that together and then just kind of tie this. And then this is how they would ship the beads. So they become in great big hanks like this. And okay, so that, and then let me go back to what kind of happened when the industry was kind of destroyed. What happens is that we have the two world wars, World War I, World War II, and the Great Depression are what, that's what happened in history that kind of destroyed the manufacturing of these beads. And it was because they needed the men in the war effort. And so the men were drafted into these wars because they needed the manpower. The buildings that they had where they had manufactured all of these beads, those were taken over, and they became munitions plants. And then a lot of these men who were drafted into the wars, they also died. And so taking many of the beadworking recipes, the secrets along with them. I think that later on there were only about 30 bead companies, and they would all join together and they would form one unified business together. And then what happens is, like I said, the Great Depression happens, and then the Venetians don't make the beads any longer. And who takes over are the Bohemians or the Czechoslovakians, also France. And there's part of one of the stories that I've heard is that Napoleon invaded there, and I believe in the 1700s, and he took some of the bead makers. He took them prisoner, and he forced them to work in France, and so we get a lot of the French beads from there. And so anyway, that's what I know about them. Okay, and then there were special colors that were very, very difficult to make. In the beginning, there was only white and black, a dark blue. Later on, there would be a little bit lighter blue, but the one color that was the most difficult to make was red. And so they made them, but they weren't very stable, and they would break apart. They would explode, or they would just deteriorate. They would fall apart. So red was really quite difficult for them to make. But then the alchemists discovered that if you add a couple of chemicals, gold chloride, and there was another psyllium, I think is the other color. Charlotte, can you put those images up? With that addition to their formula, they were able to come up with a beautiful rosy red, and the psyllium, I think is how they say it, that would make the brilliant bright red. And so myself, as an artist, I always wondered, what did these chemicals look like? And sure enough, that's what they look like. What made the seed beads at the time, during like the 1800s, they distributed tons of these, went out all over the world. A lot of them went to the Americas, to Turtle Island, and a lot of my people traded to get these beads, especially when they made more and more colors, and that enabled my people to be able to express themselves artistically with this great abundance of color. But red was the most sacred color to Native Americans. And so they came up with a process finally in which they were able to add gold to the mixture. That helped bring us this incredibly wonderful color, a white line rose. I'm sorry, I've got a banner over my image there, so I kind of can't see. So hopefully you can see, so this is the red that was in two colors. Okay, so we have white underneath, it's got a white core, and then it's got like the translucent beautiful rose, but this isn't what they called it. They called it ruby because it looks exactly like the color of rubies. If you've ever seen a real ruby, it has a kind of magenta like color to it. And so this was the color that they had. And then what I've got below me here is a piece of beadwork in which you can actually see some of the rose color right here. There's a redder one here too, a more orangey one, but again, they added a different chemical to get that brighter red, but this is the most coveted of all of the colors right here. And okay, so let me show you a tray of what the micro seed beads look like, because these are the ones that I tend to use. I don't tend to work with anything larger than maybe about a size 16. Occasionally I'll work with maybe something, maybe a 14, but mostly this is what I work with are these little itty bitty tiny little beads. And the most coveted color, of course, is for if you're a Lakota, light blue and white. And here we see the white in the size, I believe these are about 18 or 20. They're so incredibly, incredibly fine. And they're very, very difficult to work with. The older you get, the harder it is to work with these. They're worked with very fine thread and very, very fine needles. And so that's what they look like. This is my most favorite color right here is this beautiful, beautiful blue. I searched for 30 years to get this color. Now I just have this little bit here, saving that for a very special project. Okay, now I want to talk with you about how our Lakota people use the beads. Hit later or unmute. Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, we're good. Okay, all right. So my people, the Lakota people and the Plains people, which are the larger part of the surrounding family of the Plains people, they didn't have beads. What their expression in their artistic expression was porcupine quills is what they had. But we're not going to talk a whole lot about that today. We just want to talk about beads today. So I'm going to show you like a few little tools that the women had because the tools were so important to the Lakota women. And they would tan their hides and they would tan with a tool like this. This is called a wahitka. And at first, the early ones, the blade was actually made of like obsidian or flint. And they would, tighten it with this, piece of hide there. And this is the horn of an antler. The antler of an elk is what they would use. And some of these are big, really, really big, depending on like the size job that the women were going to do when they tanned hides for teepees and their clothing. Also for rawhide making, things like that. This would be a type of tool that they would use. And this is a very, very coveted item. This would have been made by her husband and it would have been a gift on their wedding. And this is a very plain one here, but there are some that are very, very elaborate where you can see their tally marks of how many hides they had tanned, how many teepees, if she was a teepee maker, how many teepees she sewed together. She even kept a running tally of how many children she had. And you would see that on some other examples, but this is a very plain one right here. And then we have, I have some other tools here. I want to talk about this particular tool right here. This is an abrader. And in the beginning, we didn't really have metal needles. What we had were these are the splinters off of leg bones that we would shape into an awl, which we would poke through the skin. We would sharpen them on a piece of sandstone, such as this. We would drag this through here and sharpen like this. And a woman would get a piece of stone like this, a piece of sandstone, if she might have visited in the Black Hills, where the story of Double Woman, who is the mythological woman who gave the art making of porcupine quill work and beadwork to the Lakota women. And so that's why they would bring home a piece like this. They would also go to the Black Hills and on the sandstone walls, they would sharpen their awls against the walls there, hoping to take back some of her supernatural powers that she had. And then they also made very, very special cases for their tools. And this is an awl case. What's underneath here is a piece of rawhide, and then it's covered with a soft piece of like maybe deer skin. And then they would string the beads around this item, and this would be the housing for their awl. Okay, and sometimes they were, quite long like this. And again, like I said, this is how they sharpened them. And so anything that they felt kind of was very precious to them, they would house and cover up in beading that was kind of a protective kind of blessing. And these were the instruments of women who belonged to sacred societies. And so they would house their beautiful tools in items like this, and they would wear them on their belt. So you would see the awl case, and you might see a knife, because those were all symbols of industry. Okay. So how they sewed the beads on, because they didn't have thread, they made their own thread, and they would make it out of sinew. And so this is the sinew of an animal. This is off of the back of the animal. If you've ever cooked a beef loin, what they call the baseball bat, I think, off the back of the animal. This is the back strap. They call this like the silver skin, but this is the sinew. And the women would strip this off of that portion of meat off of a buffalo, a deer, whatever animal it was that they had. And you can see that there's like a little membrane here, and they kind of pull some of this off, and then they'd strip these into strips. And then this would be run through their mouth to dampen it. And then they would usually roll it on you can roll it like this, through your fingers, your fingertips, or you could roll it on your leg, and then you would make these beautiful threads. And when I'm using these, I usually like to make a bunch of them like this. And then that way I've got them all prepared ahead of time. Only I don't use a bone awl. We use a steel awl nowadays to poke the holes in the skin, and then we would sew the beads on with this as our thread. Okay. Now, when the Lakota women received the beads, they came, just as I showed you, in hanks like this, all separated out. And what they believed is that the white man didn't understand that colors had potencies, special magical properties, and that he could not control those properties. They didn't understand that. That's what they believed. And so what they would do when they got the beads, can you hit that again? Yeah. And so what they would do is they would take the beads apart, they would take the little hanks apart, they would break them apart, and they would put them in a dish. Not a dish, it probably was, some other item that they had, something that they had, or maybe later on, maybe they perhaps got dishes. But anyway, they would mix all the beads up. They would take them and they would mix up all the colors like so. And this diluted the powers of these colors. Okay. And so the reason why they would do that is because now they had like a kind of a clean slate to kind of work with. And what would happen is that the designs would come from Wakantanka, the power of the universe that spoke through the mind of the woman, through her intellect and her imagination and the core of her being that matched that of Wakantanka, this part of herself that was creation. And the dreams would be given to her that way. And when she woke up, she got busy and she drew out the designs, and she started to pull the colors out of the dish, and she organized them into a beautiful design. And these designs would reflect what she knew and understood about Lakota belief and her natural surroundings. So because they are a natural indigenous people, these were the things that they understood. There was no television. There was none of the stuff that we see nowadays. There was only nature that was around them, only mountains that they saw. They understood to be the sacred four directions, what they might understand to be lightning, what they might understand to be their arrows, what they might understand to be a turtle. It was little things like this. It would be the elements of fire and wind and water, and more of their mythological stories, perhaps maybe the Thunderbirds, things like that. They would depict the earth, the sky, all in these four colors that were the Lakota colors of creation. And the four colors were the most sacred of all: red, and then blue, and then green, and then yellow. And each of these colors had a name. They were four spirits. And when these four spirits all came together, they formed the colors of the rainbow. And that represented Wakantanka, all of creation, this great council of spirits that came together that created one, and that was Wakantanka. So they show you that in their beadwork. Over and over again, they might depict, in something like this might be medicine flowers that they saw. These were medicine flowers that a woman might know these as special herbs and flowers, things like that, things that they walked on the earth, things that came from the roots of the earth up, and she might depict it, in her beadwork. Okay, and let's talk a little bit about the techniques that they used. Okay, so let me pull this piece back in. Okay, so the Lakota mainly worked in one technique. There are two that they kind of worked in, but this main one is the one that is classic Lakota. And a long time ago, the women, they called this technique hump stitch or paha stitch. It means, or like hill stitch, it means a little hill. That's what it means. And you got this little effect, this kind of rolling little hill look. And that's what we have here. And I'll try to pull it up so you can kind of see that it's a kind of a raised texture. And again, like I said, they were inspired by nature, what they saw around them, and the hills were what they saw. And this resembled the hill. And so they would name their beadwork stitch, after things like that. Even their designs, they had little names like this little stitch right here. I don't have one there's one that's similar to this, they call rabbit ears. And some of them were turtles, and like I was saying. And then we have the other stitch, which was used on the plains, which was this one. The two needle stitch, which took two needles, and it gives you a completely different effect. It's flatter, and it's really, really good for things that are more contour looking. And so you can see that they pulled the needle all the way through. With the paha stitch, they don't go through the skin unless it was really thin, but it's just done on the surface. They just nick the surface with the needle, and they're working on the top of the surface. They don't pull the thread all the way through if they can, really avoid it. That's not how they would work with it. But this stitch, you pulled all the way through the material. So you can see all the stitches on the back and all the knots. And that's because you had to have two needles to work this. So you threaded with one, you took your needle and you went in between about every two. If you want to have really good stuff, you go through about every two beads, and then you get this more flat effect. And it's really great for making contour lines like this, where the paha stitch is really good for making geometric stitches. Excuse me. Okay. Thank you. And let's see. want to talk a little bit more about this mixture of beads again. I'm going to bring this back again. So what happened later on as the century went on, and the women were on the reservations doing a lot of this beadwork, they started to run out of beads, and they had like a lot of beads that were mixed up like this in the soup mixture, the wohampe mixture, the soup mixture. And they developed a beadwork design style, and it's called wohampe. And so that you get this mixed look here, and you'll see that used throughout the Plains culture. Mostly Lakota and the Cheyennes use this technique, you know, quite a bit. Okay, and here's some like a little pouch that has a lot of the rose color here. You can see it really, really good right there. Like I said, anything that they felt was of precious nature to them, they would make a little house for it, a little teepee for it, you know, basically. And they would decorate it. And they loved decoration and they loved color. This really brightened up their world and brought so much more color to their stories, which were very, very ancient. And so they really, really loved and just coveted seed beads. I'm going to show you, yeah, bring me that one. See some moccasins, which were made a little bit later. This is about maybe about 1940. These have a lot of Czechoslovakian beads in them. Oh, and there's their soles made of rawhide. This is the hair side right here. They were sewn with sinew. Even this beadwork is all sewn with sinew. And this was the beautiful skin that they made. And they used a mixture of brains and other other ingredients, you know, to get this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful texture. There's absolutely no substitute for it. And it, you can pierce it, they would pierce it, you know, with their awl, a much finer one probably than this one. And then that's how they would bead, again, like I said, along the surface. And this was an ingenious hard sole they had, so that when they stepped on hard rocks and things like that, it wouldn't hurt your feet. Totally amazing. Okay, let me move on to oh, we are getting through this. Okay, I told you the story of
Yeah,
double
it's true. And I
woman.
should mention, Rhonda, there
Yeah.
are some questions. So when you're done with
Okay.
your list, let me know, because I
Okay,
want to
I
make sure we get to them.
Yeah, okay, I just want to mention some books because there are some really great Lakota stories. And this is a great book you can get. You can read some of the old stories. And these are like some of the stories that like my grandma told me when I was little. And also in school, we used to read a lot of these stories when I was a little girl. There was a film in here that, you know, you can read about this. And then if you want to read about what some of the designs mean, this is The Decorative Art of the Sioux Indians. This is by Whistler, who was an anthropologist, and you can get a lot of the names of the designs from here. This lady wrote a really, really nice paragraph in here. Her name was Thaw, I believe, and she wrote a nice paragraph about this dress. These are protective designs, you know, for a little girl's dress, and you can read a little bit about it, and I recommend it. She did a pretty good job. And then if you want to learn more about the history of beads, I recommend this book by Lois Dubin, The History of Beads. It's absolutely fascinating. And if you are interested in beads and glass, this is a must for your library. You can buy this in thick form, and there is also a condensed version. Okay, and I want to show you real quick one of my little pieces. So here the beads, I used Paha stitch on her little leggings, and she's got a little doll she carries. I got the mom and dad here too, but they're out of the camera. No, that's okay. Just leave that. Okay, all right, let's move on to questions.
Thank you, Rhonda. There's so much information here.
I know. Oh my goodness, I could talk for hours, but I mean, I'm trying really hard to keep it short.
I know. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. Okay, I have a lot of maybe just like really basic questions to start. They've been coming in throughout. So one is, did only women do the beading, or is it something that men would also do?
Um, in the beginning, it was only women who did this. This was a woman's thing. And anything that was the man's territory, his power, the women didn't participate in that, and the men didn't participate in societies that belonged to women. Only on special occasions were the women invited in. You know, like I said, like if her husband might have died, she might go and she might be invited to bring his regalia, and she might wear it in some of the meetings or some of the dances that she might participate in. But it was very, very special occasions. She had to belong to very special societies, but this was mainly a woman's art. Nowadays, we have a lot of men beaders that do an awful lot of really wonderful beadwork, and so it's kind of mixed nowadays. But in the early days, this was the woman's art form. These were made to bless the wearer.
Mhm.
And so they would ask, you know, they would have to give many, many presents in order to get pieces like this made by a member of the Beadwork Society. Next question.
Okay, this is probably really silly. And I feel like I might know the answer to it. This is my question, so I'll take it. What is Turtle Islands? Is that
What is
America?
Turtle Island? Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, all of the Americas. Yeah, that's
All of
what
the
we
Americas.
called it. Yeah, that's what
Okay.
we called it before it was named America. It was named Turtle Island. If you've ever encountered a turtle and looked at a turtle's back, and sometimes you'll find them in nature, there's an entire ecosystem upon its back, and it looks like the earth. And we have many creation stories of the turtle diving down into the water to gets a piece of clay and then comes up and creates the earth. Well, that's why we call it Turtle Island. Turtles
Okay.
also represent longevity, and it is a symbol of long life and good fortune. And we use these for children as protection, you know, when they're born. There's several stories that kind of go into that. It's kind of lengthy, so I don't want to go into it right now, but later, you know,
Okay,
another
to
time
be
perhaps.
continued. So you identified that both the light blue and the white are the most coveted colors for the Lakota. Would you
Mhm.
mind unpacking for us why those two colors?
Well, those are the background colors. Okay, so with a woman's dress, like I don't have an example of a dress here, but this is a background color, and so as is white. You know, that those were our background colors. So we needed a lot of those in order to cover an entire dress. That's why when I'm looking for beads, I need to have a lot of these colors, you know, a lot of this background color. So it's not that they are the most coveted. It's most coveted probably by myself. But when we want to cover a background, those are the two colors that we as Lakota mainly use. Nowadays, they use many, many colors for their background. They might make an orange background, they might make a red background, but back in the classic time, it was mostly white as the background, or it was blue. And blue representing the sky realm. And then white was kind of neutral. It could kind of be almost anything. But also it harkens back to the white buffalo
The
woman.
buffalo.
Yeah.
Yep. Full circle. So your designs look so deliberate. How do you outline and prepare for your micro beading projects? Do you draft designs beforehand, or do you improvise as you go?
I usually draw them out on paper. I lay out my beads, you know, what colors I intend, you know, to work with, and then I break them apart and I put them in dishes and and I start beading. But a lot of my stuff, I really tend to stay very, very traditional. I tend to stay away from orange because they didn't have orange like prior to like 1920 or so. So I don't use a whole lot of orange. Every now and then I might throw a little orange in there, but mostly I don't use orange.
Got it. That maybe answers this next question. Do you only use traditional stitches in your pieces, or sometimes do you improvise and make up your own?
No, I only tend to use the Lakota style stitches or the plains stitches. I don't do like brick stitch or peyote stitch. I have learned those once in school, but I tend to stick to what is only used on the plains.
Okay. Last question. What would you recommend to someone who's really interested in exploring microbeading themselves? Is this an easy trade to get into, or would you maybe shy away from it?
I would completely shy away from it so that I can get all the beads. No,
Wait,
no,
'cause
it
the
is.
beads are very coveted and they're discontinued.
That's right.
So,
And I
right.
don't want anybody else to shop for them. No, really, they're very, very difficult to find. Like I said, they stopped making these around the turn of the century. They're about 100 years old now. They're antique. They're hard to work with. Very, very difficult. It's rewarding if you really want to spend the time to work with them, but they're very, very difficult to find. And there will be colors that you won't be able to find for 30 years. Like I said, me searching for the light blue beads so that I can make more things that are Lakota in style. I couldn't find them for years and years and years. I still hunt for them. I still look for them, and with no success. And it's a very, very time consuming. I spend a lot of time searching for these. I might get them from traders who might have them, and they'll say, they'll call me up and say, "Hey, Rhonda, I've got a little batch of beads that I picked up somewhere, and do you want them?" And I'll take a look at them. And they're also really, really expensive. So if you're just starting out as a beader, I would buy the more modern beads, because then you can you can really work with them without worry that you might be not good enough at your technique and that you might be wasting antique beads. So I would just buy the brand new ones. And there's like all kinds of different colors and finishes, things like that you can be very, very creative with. But if you only want to stick with all the old time style beads, the old time designs, that's what I do. Everything is old time. And but yeah, this is a long process. This is something I've been doing for like 40, 45 years. I've been messing around with this for a very, very long time. It's not an easy thing to do, but good luck if you dive
Yeah,
in.
well, such a labor of love. It's clear. I mean, the attention to detail, I don't think I fully understood. And even seeing it now compared to your hand, you can't really grasp how quite small these are until you see them in person. And that's when,
Yeah.
at least for me, I was really blown away once your artwork arrived. I was the dedication and then the amount of time that it goes into making just one of these.
Okay, so if we flip back to my demo camera, okay, so this is probably about a size 10, about 11 or a 10 in the pink. Okay, and then these are like I said, like about an 18, size 18 or a 19 on this side. So super fine.
Yeah.
So
So I can
really
attest, our head of
down.
education took a minute to try to source some of these for the upcoming Unite that we're doing, which is about craft and about the hand. And she could not find anything to purchase for us. We do have some samples for people who want to come and join us, but it will not be the caliber of the ones that you use.
Thank you.
So I have one last image. I don't know if you want me to bring it up, of the double woman. Would you like me to pull that up really quick?
Bring her up.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is where, and this is what she looked like according to the women. These the drawing that you see right there, Ella Deloria, who was our Dakota anthropologist, asked a lady about these double women and this particular society that they had. And then they drew a picture for her. And so that's what you're seeing there. And it's always, she's always kind of depicted with, or they are depicted with this little girl in the center of, that they're kind of walking along with. She's kind of tethered and they're walking along with her. We don't know a whole lot about this society, but again, it is negative and positive, because as people, we carry both negative and positive energy. This was a society, like I said, that we don't know a whole lot about, but we do believe that the images, what you're seeing there, that is a double woman, I do believe. A friend of mine sent me that image, and she's wearing the half and half dress. And the headdress, it appears to kind of be like peacock feathers, but it is whatever she saw in the dream. Whatever she saw. And Ella Deloria has a story about a woman who dreamed of double woman, and she's a fish in the beginning of the dream, or she follows a fish, a red-quilled fish. She follows it through a river, and then the river opens up into, like, she's underwater, and it opens up into a cave. And on one side, there were negative women that were sitting there who were beckoning for her to come by them. And then there were other women on the other side who were sitting there doing the trick stitch, which is what they call the quill work. They called it trick stitch. There was a trick to doing the little stitch. Like, you had to know this little trick, which is the technique essentially. And they were sitting there and they were quilling, and they were happy, and they were smiling. And that's her choice. Like I said, the all case represents this path of virtues and morals for a woman. And one path is positive, the other path is negative. And but we all have a little bit of that, in there. But the whole idea is to kind of stay on the good side, on the more sacred, the more holy path is basically what it is. And so by doing this wonderful sacred art, that keeps you, in touch with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we all have dichotomy, and I always say that glass is a material that embodies it, because it's both liquid and solid and elastic and brittle and captivating and humbling. And I feel like it's the perfect medium for you.
And fragile.
So fragile. Rhonda, thank you. Thank you for your time, for your generosity, for sharing so much with us this evening. This has just been a really fascinating talk. We appreciate the intimacy of it, and we're so honored to have your work at the Barre Art Museum. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Piece has been acquired.
It is an honor to be there at the brand new Barre Museum, and I'm in very good company with all of the wonderful artists that you have showing there. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, we are honored to have you. Okay, so at the very, very end here, I'd just like to give you guys a tiny look-see at what's coming up next, if I can get it all together here. So next Friday, November 11th, we have one of our Unites, and this one is all about tradition and craft. So we hope that you will come. It's free and open to the public. There's beverages, there's refreshments, and come check it out. It will be wonderful. And then finally, on Thursday, December 1st is our final lecture of the fall lecture series. It's with Michael Stern and Susie Peck, exploring the relationship between glass, between the future and present of glass. And it's our final thing concluding the International Year of Glass. So everyone, thank you so much for coming. It's been a joy to have you here, and we hope to see you again very soon. Bye now. Bye, Rhonda.
Bye.